Successful social entrepreneur, respected business community leader who has built successful enterprises in diverse industries in real estate, consumer goods, retail, food tech, and finance. He's the chairman emeritus of the Anvil Business Club and director of the think tank Integrated Development Studies Institute, our partner for today's event. He graduated from Wharton and Ateneo University. Let us welcome Mr. George C.
Yeah, I'm here today to share a little about what culturally the Chinoy culture and the Philippine culture has in store for the coming opportunities here in the Philippines. No? If we look at things around the world, we will find all throughout history, generally 10% of the people run the world, 10% analyze it and give their agreement or critique, and 80% don't really know what happened. Where do we fall? If we don't have control over our life, we're always subject to all the the factors that happen in the world, and we're not in control. So we have issues, no? So we'd like to move to a higher success level. So I was looking at the factors for success. At one time, I had attended a session with one of the chambers of commerce. They had invited a distinguished professor from one of the Ivy League schools, and then he was presenting what are the factors for someone to succeed. And he brought up that statistically they found that what made people succeed is if they had education, if they had network connections, if the family was stable and supportive, and if they had capital. Then if I look back at history, I remember many of you are still third, or maybe some of you are fourth generation. The first generation of Chinoys who come here each time, they don't have education, they cannot speak the language, they don't have networks or connections, they don't have family support, they come alone, and they don't have capital. And yet they become the top 5% in successful enterprises here. And why is that? So I say that our culture gives us certain factors of success that it would be a waste if we don't use it. So it's not that the Western model is not correct, but there are other models to follow. So let's say, for instance, here, I would put here that instead of academic education, we have life experience education, we have mentors, and we have literature, which we will show shortly how our culture would be able to help. We have network connections. They're referring to family connections or enterprise corporate connections. Here you are taught in the culture, you're taught how to make sip and how to spend time and become reliable and maybe become someone's alalay muna until you learn the game, right? So that's how you build your connection. So all of these are teaching you how to build your success without having that capital education, basically meaning starting from scratch. You don't have capital, your reputation for ability and paying your credit means that people will give you credit, so you don't really need that much capital. So this is a more viable model for a country that's just developing. Here we say, I'll just give a couple of examples of how you can start from scratch. No? So for instance, I have a friend, Filipino Chinese, who went to New York. That was 20 years ago or long. And then he went to work for a Jewish company in the New York, and people would say, why did you work for this Jewish company? Because the Jew tends to pay you less and work you harder. No? And he said, and he explained that while he was there, what he found that is because he worked harder and he accepted less pay with less complaint, the boss trusted him more. So he learned how to what goods sell, what don't sell. He became friends with the suppliers, and he knows all the customers who are the good customers, who are not good customers. So he didn't go into a glamour industry, but 3 years down the road, he's able to go 6 blocks down the road and open his own shop because the suppliers are willing to support him, and he knows what are the goods he needs to sell. So that's an example of how you can start from scratch. And here, for instance, an attitude is a lot of people here would say, if you look at number 4, oh, China has low quality goods. No? It's partially true. So we can say, for instance, that China is not like a small country which has only low quality or high quality goods. It gives you the whole range. So if you're a sari store, you're not going to try buy Apple, no? So you're going to have low quality goods, but they're cheap and they serve the purpose for the people that want to buy it. So you have a whole supermarket of goods from lowest to highest quality. Today, we know that the Apple, the highest quality products, Samsung, these are being produced in China, and Huawei is the leader. And China just put a satellite on Mars rover. So we know that it's the whole range. People now know it's the whole range, including vaccines. So another example of how the culture helps is this attitude of overcoming obstacles instead of just complaining. So for instance, earlier we said people complained about low quality goods, but a lot of people started business with low quality goods. If you don't start with selling steak for restaurant, you start selling banana Q. So if you don't look at that as an opportunity, then I'm sorry, somebody will become rich other than you. So for instance, we look at Jack Ma. Jack Ma was a teacher and he didn't know anything about business, but he became what he's now the third richest man in Asia, no, or in China, no. The China, having had no road distribution and poor infrastructure in phone system, leapfrogged and went straight to digital. No, if we look at Happy and Zesto, Happy, which is the biggest toothpaste company here now, and Zesto, the biggest drinks company, both of them started because they were supplying multinationals that promised them they would give them huge orders if they bought new equipment. But when they bought the new equipment and the multinationals reneged because they moved to Thailand, their production, they had no choice because they would go bankrupt. So instead, they went into business and now they're very successful. So that's an example of overcoming obstacles becomes your opportunity. So some people will say, "Oh, this is not true," or they'll argue with you because a favorite pastime in the Philippines is to argue. No, there's no, we argue for fun and because that's making chica, and that's how we provoke our friends. But actually, in the end, you don't really need to argue. You just bring up the ideas and they listen or not, because you can choose what you want to believe, but you cannot choose the consequences. Because if you are right, you'll become rich and they'll become poor. If they are right, and then maybe both of you are right, hopefully both of you are right. An example, my training in Wharton, they teach you to quantify things so that you can make it quantitative and factual, logical. So the Chinese just say work hard. No, they don't have mathematics. They just say work hard and longer. But mathematically, it can be shown here. If any of you take any basic math or algebra or statistics, actually even a basic math on compounding, you will see here on column A, if you are producing 10% better than the next person, now that 10% can come in any form. Maybe you spend 10% more time. Maybe they spend 6 hours a day working, you spend 7 hours. So 10% more time or 10% more efficiency or 10% better pricing. That 10% difference when compounded, you will see here, in 10 years, you become 2.5 times bigger than the other rival that you have, and in 20 years become 7 times bigger. If you are 5%, just a mere 5% more productivity than the next person, will show that in 20 years you're 2.5 times. So that means that given nothing else, no more opportunity, no additional connection, anything else, just 10% more productivity makes you 7 times bigger. Other people become jealous and they accuse you of cheating. Maybe you cheated a little here and there. Maybe they did it, but without any cheating, you will be already 7 times bigger. So we're saying start working hard and better early. So we're saying that in Wharton, they taught us to quantify things, but even without quantification, the culture already teaches you how to succeed. This is a game of strategy, which we will not explain at this time, but one of the factors that they will teach you, if you read a lot of Chinese literature, there is maraming utakan, utakan outwitting each other, no? So which we will show in a few movies to show both old movies and new movies. Next, please. So here in this one, this movie, Last Tycoon, it's about an assistant who is saving the boss who was kidnapped by the Japanese. And it's actually patterned after a true story in Shanghai during the Sino-Japanese War. No? Then the Japanese commander, he wants three things in order to free the boss. And you will see that he makes it hard for this guy. But instead of fighting with this guy and possibly getting killed, because what the Philippines, very often is, I'm willing to die for this. But a lot of times, if you ask creativity, you can actually become win-win situation even with your rivals and enemies. No, if you are bold enough to be creative in your negotiations. So two things: you negotiate and you are creative. So you will see here the Japanese commander offers 3 conditions to release the boss, and he offers 3 counter conditions, and his conditions win out. I will explain later why. Please play.
程大器，程大器，过来。我没有说让你走过来，我是让你一直跪。
是不是我跪了，你就把我师傅给放了？
你说什么？我什么都听不见呀。我只让程大器一个人跪。洪少廷的徒弟程大器，你果然有种啊！听说你办事干练。 没有你办不成的事，今天我就考考你。我还有3个条件，
别说是3个，就算是3000个，在我这里也只得2个字：照办。
好，第一，让小兰春陪我3天；二，让洪寿廷在上海所有的报纸登报向我道歉；三，让你师傅跟你一样，从这里一直给我跪出去，每3步扣1个响头，行吗？好。
可是还不够好，这样吧，少帅，我跟您换一换。第一，既然小兰春已经名花有主，您就不要再难为她了。益春园那里美女如云，您可以任选一位年轻貌美的。第二，我让师傅做东，在杏花楼，请您和令尊宴开摆席，顺便为您的姥姥摆70大寿，报上灯照，不是更有面子吗？至于第3件。 我想用一样东西来代替。
说来听听。
令尊手握兵权，只可惜有权而未能生财，有势而未能取利，更何况要养这么大的部队，这么多人。我师父刚刚入股利源银行，我希望能够请到少帅和督军父子加盟，成为我们的股东。这样一来，我们的地盘就能扩大到不止上海法租界，还包括浙江跟江苏2省，利润以倍返。 少说1年也能赚个2、3千万，少帅和督军就算是占股3成，也可以有过千万的收入。咱们化敌为友，化干戈为大洋，不是更好吗？
你以为你吹吹牛皮我就会信吗？
全都给我住手！
爹，你不要信他。
你也闭嘴！毛再说和你是朋友，是吗？
是啊，我们认识已经很久了。
入股银行的事儿，我占5成。你说的对。 以和为贵，
那我就替师傅做主，再拿出1成的股份来，连我自己的1成，一共5成，也一并送给陆大帅。
爹，不行啊，小兰春一定要赔我的。
我果然没看错你，人才就是命大。
Yes, this is to show, for instance, that while he gave 3 counter conditions, the son wanted the wife of the gangster boss, but the father was more sensible. Why are you going to trade because you want this woman, and then you're going to lose us a fortune? Even after the war, they would have shares in the bank and they can do business together. That is actually good for everybody. So that's an example of what negotiation in a creative. You have to dare to negotiate and be creative. So that's one thing. And so here now, this is one of the things, if we don't watch these movies, because you'll never find this kind of negotiation in local movies. And so language is a useful thing to know, or at least you watch the movies that have translation. So the next one, another one we will show. This is from the 1700 year literature of the Three Kingdoms, because if you watch it, there's a TV series on YouTube. It shows every minute you will learn something. Here you will see that the very powerful assistant to the king, Cao Cao, he appreciates talent, number one. He recognizes when someone has beaten him with more talent than his group has, number two. Number three, he tries to analyze this, and his ministers are frank about the level they measure. Just like later, you don't just have a direction, you measure what the level of ability is. So this is from a 1,700 old literature.
请丞相治罪。
胜败乃兵家常事，损几万兵，丢个城池，我不在意。我没料到的是，刘备居然能够识破我的金锁阵法。
禀丞相，破金锁八门阵的不是刘备，而是他新拜的军师，名叫徐庶。
徐庶是什么人？
丞相，此人我认识，他叫徐元直，襄阳名士，精通兵法，深明韬略。
他的才华比你如何？
胜我数倍。
不可能，
数倍乃至数十倍。
刘备过去只有张飞、关羽等武将，现在又添了个军师，岂不是要龙生双翼了吗？
So we see here that not only did they admit that the advisor is much better than them, they noticed because the other party beat their best tactics, they also measure it. It's a measure 10 times, 12 times. The next one that we will show is a co-opetition, demonstrating co-opetition, which we will show three short videos. One is to show that Tim Cook, an American who is managing Apple and competing with Huawei and China, is going to say good things about China because they are able to cooperate even while they are competing, which a lot of people in the Philippines, they just want to fight with people they don't like, because even if you don't like someone, you can still benefit together, no? So then you will find the equivalent naman, si Huawei boss Ren Zhengfei is complimenting Apple and the United States, even though the United States is sanctioning them. Then later we will have a Korean movie which we will explain. But here, for instance, you see the picture here. The American is with the Soviets. You know, they are going to the space with Soviet rockets at an earlier time. And Bill Gates gave the investment that saved Apple, even though they were competitors. And both of them made more fortunes from it because in the end, Apple became more highly valued in the stock markets than Microsoft for a while. Although now Microsoft has also exceeded, I think, the $2 trillion valuation. Go ahead.
There's a confusion about China that, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. And that is not the reason to come to China from a supply point of view. The reason is because of the skill and the quantity of skill in one location and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling. And the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. You know, in the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers, and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep, very, very deep here. And I give the education system a lot of credit for continuing.
Yes, so that was Tim Cook of Apple giving compliments to China, and here you will see Huawei boss giving compliments to the US, and they are very intense rivals.
国的摩擦跟中国日益的加剧，然后美方有一点非置华为于死地而不可之势。总结来说，您觉得美国是敌还是友？
如果说我们不想死的话，我们就要向最优秀的人学习，即使人家反对我，我也要向他学习，不然我怎么能先进呢？美国制裁我也只是少数人的意见，不代表全美国人民，也不代表美国的企业。我们还是真诚的跟美国企业加强合作，美国的科技界呀，各种方面合作。
We can say also, for instance, recently, about 4 years ago, Jollibee was competing with Mang Inasal, and in the end, they bought Mang Inasal, and now they are partners in several businesses and making good money. And we can see also that while Japan and Vietnam have disputes with China, they continue to go and court and attract China investments and markets. And so, you know, even while you're having a dispute, like a family or your barkada, you can still continue to cooperate. So this idea that you have to take only one side, that is passé idea that is for people who are likely to fail in the future. So we are going to show another one. This is a Korean show. You know, there's a lot of Korean shows to show you the level of competition they have and the culture they have. So it's not really just China or Chinese, it's East Asian culture that has a Confucian bent, puts a lot of value on hard work and education and being trying to reach some kind of compromise where you can. So this is a widely watched movie also, Sky Castles. And you will see how competitive the parent hiring a master tutor to come tutor her daughter, and they're going to examine everything, even on just the environment.
수험생 건강에 좋은 음식 리스트입니다.
어머, 이런 것까지. 정말 감사해요, 선생님. 예서 방 좀 볼까요? 문도 등지지 않고 책상 위치 좋습니다. 문을 등지고 있으면 심리적으로 불안하고 집중력이 떨어진다고 해서요. 메인 책상과 스탠드 책상을 북쪽에 두신 것도 잘하셨습니다. 햇빛이 잘 비추지 않아야 공부할 때 집중력이 좋아지거든요. 그래서 여긴 자주 사용하니?
네, 스탠드 책상에서도 집중 안 된다 싶으면 들어가요. 완전 독서실 같거든요.
굿. 어머니, 이 방에다 교실에서 쓰는 책걸상 하나 더 넣어주세요. 시험 환경과 비슷한 곳에서 실전처럼 연습해야죠. 그리고 아주 잘 보이는 곳에 스톱워치도 벽에 걸어주세요. 문제 푸는 시간을 체크해야 되니까요. 습도는 항상 20도에서 23도를 유지해 주시고요. 이 스탠드는 바꾸셔야겠는데요. 수학, 과학 같은 수리 영역을 공부할 땐 8000 켈빈 정도의 푸른빛을, 암기 과목은 4000 켈빈 정도의 흰색이, 음악 미술 같은 창조적인 학습에는 2200 켈빈 정도의 붉은 빛이 학습 효과를 극대화할 수 있습니다. 책상의 유리는 당장 치우셔야 합니다. 차가운 유리 때문에 자칫 체온이 떨어지면 다시 원래로 체온을 올리기 위해 에너지가 소모됩니다. 벽에 쓸데없는 건 다 떼시고 몬드리 안에 그림을 걸어주세요. 집중력이 높아지고 뇌 운동이 활발해지는 데 도움을 주거든요. 선생님이 옆에 계시니 이렇게 든든할 수가 없어요. 너무 감사드려요.
Yes, these are a few examples of what are being shown and the values and the take-home value that you can have when you watch East Asian shows. Those that are from Confucius, it can be Japanese, can be Korean, Vietnamese, Thai, Chinese, Hongki, Singaporean. So there's a lot to learn both in technique, in technology, and in the way you conduct yourself that can be good for you in the future. First, the things we have to look at is what kind of decisions framework do we have? Is it random? You know, we have to see, especially when we're young, how do we spend our time? Who do we spend our time with? Who do you pick as partners in life? And you can't know exactly what's right or wrong. So you can dream big, you should dream big, but take small steps first. Don't take a big giant jump while you're still learning. No? So, but if you want to, you can succeed with that. But if you want to succeed on a big scale, don't expect a balanced life, because it's a myth that you can succeed on a big scale, on a really very, very successful, if you're still young. Later on, when you already have the capital, you can do that. But if not yet, then do not expect a balanced life. You have to concentrate your energies and other assets, and your certainty level, you have to take risks. So your certainty level is not that high. So you are having to sacrifice and take these risks if you're wanting to be more ambitious. So what can we use today? If we had professionals and teachers here also, one of the first things we want to learn before we go into the principles is that times have changed, so that if we are still, for instance, in the mode of saving our income, we are going to lose out because of the inflation of key assets like land and resources and the very low interest rate, so that if you're hoping for retirement savings, that's not going to be enough. So success is very important. Personal finance is an important part of what we have to know. Okay, and then currently it's a very good time. Why? Because even though we have a pandemic, this thing is going to pass. And regionally, we are centered in Asia, where you will find finance, the ability to finance you. There are markets. The fastest growing markets in the world are China and ASEAN and India. They have the sources of technology, and they have the networks here. You have both the people who are producing the softwares, doing the logistics, markets doing the production. They're all here. No? And the Philippines is now at a takeoff point, with many industries being restructured and with a low interest rate. So there are many things to be able to enter, whether as an employee, to learn through other people's experiences, or to enter into it yourself. And then individually, you have a lot of sources of world-class learning, sources of finance, models to follow, and you are able to outsource a lot of services that used to have to come with the company or your family. Now you can outsource them. So there are so many possible models. We can look at them as opportunities if people are not spending too much time on Facebook and social media or on Netflix. So there's advice. We always have advice. So you see, if you will notice, a lot of the Chinese or the Asians, their culture is, once they become successful, they try to advise the next generation. And this is Jack Ma advising us that when you're 20 to 30 years old, find a good boss rather than that's better than a good company, which I think makes sense, because a good boss, even in a small company, you will learn so much. Whereas in a big company, maybe they might give you just basic bureaucratic work, unless somebody recognizes your talent early, right? So he's telling you at each stage of your life what you should be focusing on to be successful and still live a good life. So if people don't agree with you, again, as we said earlier, the thing that will be the one checking you is reality. So you don't need to argue a lot. People who spend a lot of time arguing, they are not going to be successful. Whoever is successful or not, your lesson, you will keep retaking that test. No, unlike in school, you pass or you fail. In life, you will keep retaking it. You will keep paying the tuition until you learn the lesson. And you'll keep paying the price, so better to learn it early. And of course, we're learning also from the Philippines. May mga wisdoms na sinasabi for those who watch this hit movie 2 years ago. May mga dinadaanan lang at merong pang matagalang. That means some relationships and some models of behavior or decision making are good for you today or for you, and it may not be the same forever. Thank you very much.